Hello, my name is Mabel Verstraaten-Bortier, and for this ISAN 2026 conference, I'll be presenting on the topic Autoethnography as Home, a poetic autoethnography of feeling lost and finding my academic home. In this presentation, I'll be looking at what this project is about, why I embarked on this project. I'll be giving a small content warning. I'll be sharing poetic depictions of my feeling lost, independent researcher, definition and my experience of it. I'll be sharing Mallet's concept of home, representations of home as belonging and as feeling, autoethnography and autoethnography as home. Why this project? First, my research positionality. I've always dreamed of being an academic, but could this dream still come to pass upon completion of my doctoral degree, which marked the end of my ties, my affiliation with my academic institution? And is this dream still possible as a trailing spouse, living in the middle of a remote agricultural estate or a plantation in Liberia, West Africa? My project aim. For this project, I have attempted to explore my process of becoming an independent academic, as opposed to taking the more conventional route of being attached to an academic institution. My research question, therefore, is: can I be an academic, researcher, scholar without any affiliation to an academic or research institution? And if so, how? Here's my small content warning. A significant part of this paper will be about the privilege of having a loving home or feeling at home somewhere. This content warning is therefore to acknowledge the fact that home can be a place of immense sorrow for some and can trigger unpleasant memories. However, our family of origin home, foster home, or even a partnered or marital home are not the only homes. The kind of home I'll be discussing is the ideal dream home, which doesn't really exist, and yet we are able to experience glimpses of it every now and then. The path, as I imagined it: a doctoral degree, a postgraduate, a postdoc perhaps, affiliation with an institution, researching, publishing, teaching, living the dream. That's what makes you an academic. Feeling lost, the dream to be an academic. Then graduation came. Now what? Stumbling my way towards home. Applying for my first conference, the dreaded words showed up: institutional affiliation, dash, dash, dash. Then fell my eyes upon the other option, independent scholar. How refreshing. A rose by any other name. What is in a name? Shakespeare writes. At least I now have a name to go by. But which one is it? Independent scholar, independent researcher, or independent academic? Perhaps it depends on which side of the pond I'm at. Since I'm yet to figure this out, I'll be using all three interchangeably. Definition of independent researcher. An independent researcher is a scholar or researcher with no institutional affiliation, such as a student or staff. An independent researcher carries out self-motivated research. An independent researcher is different from independent learner by being actively engaged with and actively contributing to a field of study. Response to the definition of independent researcher. My reaction to the above definition of an independent researcher was comforting at first. This was immediately followed by questions like: without any ties to the academy, how do I get ethical approval for my work, support, feedback, supervision, and how do I engage with the field and get my work out there? Why aim to be an independent researcher in the first place? In my case, it was both out of necessity of living in a remote area and of my love of learning, researching, and sharing what I've discovered along the way. But as time progressed, I've also come to love the freedom and flexibility it affords me. Struggles of the trailing spouse as an independent scholar. The struggles of an independent scholar are very much like the struggles of the trailing spouse, which I spoke about last year. So perhaps I should call the following poem The Independent Scholar Syndrome, as much of it was borrowed from the poem The Trailing Spouse Syndrome. The symptoms are strikingly similar, and ask the question, what now? What now? Since I'm no longer affiliated to an academic institution, one that I can call my academic home, what becomes of all my drive, my passion, my ambition, my lifelong dream of becoming an academic? Graduation came and went. What now? The independent scholar syndrome. Feelings of isolation, a disorientation that shows up as lack of direction, loss of identity. One becomes nameless and associationless. Institutions lend us their names, don't they? Most often, one is reduced to just some lonely loner calling herself an academic. In conversations, we don't get the interjections like, oh wow, I'm collaborating with this professor at your university. No, there's no your university. You are just some academic outside of the academy, a scholar without a school. No grants, no free access to academic journals, no academic home base to call your very own. So, what or where is home, by the way? In her paper, Understanding Home, a critical review of the literature, Shelley Mallet raises the question of whether or not home is A. Space, B. Feeling, C. Practice, or D. An active state of being in the world. Mallet points out that home has variously been described as conflated with or related to a house, a static place, a collective, family versus self, a haven, a self, amongst others, and even a journeying, a coming to rest, refueling, and journeying on again. Autoethnography. Autoethnography, the root words of which represent self, human beings or culture, and field of study, respectively. Coming home to autoethnography, Shelley Mallet, in raising those questions about what home is, has helped me come to the realization that, for me, autoethnography has become my home. Thus, autoethnography is a beloved place I inhabit, like right here at ISAN 2026 or at the IANI forums. Autoethnography evokes feelings of warmth that come with living the autoethnographic life, through noticing and remembering. Autoethnography for me is that beautiful practice of researching and writing about my lived experiences. Autoethnography for me has become an active way of being in the world. Synchronicity of autoethnography as home in Aaron Hoy's book review. So the book Aaron reviewed is called Assessing Autoethnography, Notes on Analysis, Evaluation and Craft by Andrew Herman and Tony Adams. In his review, titled A Not Quite Assessment of Assessing Autoethnography, I was struck by this thread of autoethnography as home. So this ekphrastic poem, which is the text of poetry and image put together, is taken from Andrew Hoy's article of the review of Tony Adams' book. So in the second stanza of Aaron's ekphrastic poem, which is centered on autoethnographic research, he writes, questions we have in and about our lives, moving into and through research, produce some kind of knowledge. Autoethnographic research utilizes methodologies that acknowledge the unique, drawing on personal experiences, skins split open, bringing it into research. In the third stanza, which connects autoethnography and home, Aaron writes, autoethnography provided me home, or just plain alone, creative ways to do and share. This is formative, professionally and personally. Home as belonging to a collective, belonging to IANI, that is, the International Association of Autoethnography and Narrative Inquiry, means far more than belonging to an academic institution. It calms all my doubts and fears. With IANI and autoethnography, I found my good ground to grow, just like in the parable of the sower, in which autoethnography is a good fertile ground, rich in nutrients and resources, and I, the seed, full of potential, waiting to sprout. Autoethnography as good holding ground. With this image, I want to show the rich grounds of autoethnography or the rich grounds of the IANI community, where we can see a seed falling into the rich soil, and then the steps of its growth. It's a similar or the same kind of picture, but this one, I'm thinking of I as seed. And 2 years ago, when I stumbled upon autoethnography, I was at stage one, which is the seed that is waiting for the right conditions or the right environment to start sprouting. 2 years on, I'm feeling like I'm between stage 2 and 3, which is the radical stage and the hypocotyl stage. I'm beginning to put down roots, and it feels nice. It feels comfortable. I still feel challenged, but I feel very supported. I feel like I found my place and I can put down deep roots. Home as feeling, as Mallet writes. If autoethnography is home as feeling, then I feel grounded, supported, nourished, challenged, expanded, and swollen with so much potential. I feel nourished, well nourished, satiated. I feel I can play and experiment. I feel safe, seen, and validated. I feel I can succeed and blossom beautifully. I feel at home. I feel prayed for and prophesied over. And if you still don't believe me, here, let me show you. So at the start of 2024, at the IANI Forum, which was held at St. Pete's Beach, Florida, USA, I won this lovely book by Christopher N. Polis in a book raffle, the title Accidental Autoethnography. And he was kind enough to autograph it for me. And the message he put down on the first page of the book reads, "For Mabel, may your autoethnographic travels bring you home." Little did I know that was a prophecy. Now, 2 years on, with autoethnography, I feel I found my academic home, and it isn't an academic institution, but rather a community, a loving community at that. With autoethnography, I've finally found my way home. Thank you for your kind attention.